I want to start by telling you a short but really important story to me. So a few years ago, I used to work near Wynyard Station. And each morning I would catch the train there and walk through the tunnel to exit. And there was a man who appeared to be homeless. He would beg for money, but one day I noticed that he was wearing brand new shoes. I didn't think much of it and kept on walking. That afternoon, I caught the train home and I was reading that free magazine, MX, and someone had sent a text message in which said, "Caught the train to Wynyard, homeless guy begging for money there with brand new shoes. What a load of crap. Don't give him any money." The next day, I noticed someone else had written another text response into MX, which said, "Not that it's any of your business, but for your information, I bought him those shoes because he didn't have any." Now, this story is particularly important to me because I run high school workshops for students, and every single group that I have ever told the start of this story to assumes that the homeless person stole the shoes. It didn't even cross their mind that someone may have bought the shoes for them. Another pattern which I find, no matter how compassionate, empathetic, or giving the students I'm working with happen to be, another pattern that I find is when I ask them to describe their typical image of a homeless person, they describe an older man who's maybe smelly, violent, begging for money, a dumpster diver. They're probably uneducated, unemployed, with a drug or alcohol problem, but they sure know how to rock an awesome beard. So this is the image that I get, and I guess if we were to put a label on it, one of the first ones which comes to mind is hobo. Now this term resonates with me because it wasn't that long ago when I was a hobo. The only thing was, I just didn't fit that stereotype that they were describing. I grew up in Canberra with my mum, who is one of the most beautiful, kind and giving people that I know. However, she struggled since before I was born with mental health issues. And she, I guess you could say, coped with pain in ways which were really destructive, which I was exposed to from a very young age. And basically, due to her vulnerability, brought people into our life who took advantage of her and took advantage of me too. Basically, I also knew in my home from a very young age that money was very tight. One of my most prized possessions was this video copy of The Lion King. I freaking love that movie. And one day I went to watch it and I couldn't find it. And I said to my mum, "Mum, where is it?" And she told me that she had actually taken it to cash converters and pawned it so that we could have money for food. And although it may seem like a pretty small thing, for a young kid in my world, that was really, really hard for me to comprehend. I got until about halfway through year 12 before I decided to drop out of school. I wanted to take the financial burden off my mum, and I was also finding things really tough at home and wanted more independence and to do my own thing. So I worked full time. My first job was at the cheesecake shop, and then I worked at a real estate and a bank. I was in a serious relationship at this point, so we had a one-bedroom apartment together and decided to save our money and go backpacking. Here's a picture of me in Amsterdam with a giant handbag. That was pretty good. Came back from backpacking, and basically, you guys know I came from, I guess what you could say is a broken home, but so did he. We both knew this about each other. What we didn't realise was a whole lot of issues that we hadn't dealt with yet would soon come to surface after travelling. And I once again found myself in a home environment which was really unsafe and quite destructive. So I decided to leave. I didn't have family I could go back to, and I didn't have very many friends either. And so I started doing what most young people would do at this point, and that's staying on my friends' couches. So I basically started couch surfing. I didn't create an account though on couchsurfing.org. I kind of just went into survival mode, doing what I could, with absolutely no idea that I was homeless. I did get, I guess what you could call a break, because I had a friend who recognized my situation and offered to take me to a youth refuge. Although this sounds like a great thing, and it changed my life. At the time, I thought, a youth refuge? Far out. I've never felt so scared in my life. No matter all the tough stuff I'd been through, I never thought I'd end up there. And all these things were rushing through my head. I felt like a complete failure. I felt like there was something wrong with me, which I wasn't sure I'd be able to fix. But I went there, and I ended up getting a job. I got a job at a law firm, managing an administration team of 6 people. And I was homeless during this period for about 12 months in total. Not one person, not my team, not my boss, not HR, ever found out I was homeless. I remember spending quite a few lunchtimes going into the fire stairs of the building, making phone calls, trying to figure out where I would sleep that night, then composing myself, gathering my thoughts and going back in and leading that team. And so basically, I guess you could say I was living a double life. Eventually, I started to overcome homelessness and found myself in stable accommodation. But I learned that I was actually part of a pretty big statistic. Living a double life, you're not always sure who else is affected around you, and you can feel pretty isolated. But I learned that over 44,000, that's 42% of Australia's homeless population, are under the age of 25. This includes over 17,000 children under the age of 12. This is a really huge statistic and something I had no idea about. Something else really important that I learned is that 6 out of every 100 people who are experiencing homelessness are actually sleeping rough. So this means sleeping on the streets. The other percentage, they're so much more hidden. They're on the couches of friends, they're in boarding houses, they're in overcrowded houses, and other types of unstable accommodation. So what do these statistics mean for an emerging generation of hidden homeless? I really believe that the language we use, the attitudes we have, and the judgments we make have the potential to change the world that we live in and to ultimately end youth homelessness. Take any issue, for example. If you develop a deeper understanding of that issue, you then have the opportunity to choose how you wish to respond to it. So if all we see is a stereotypical image of a homeless person, or if all we see is that 6% of the pie, then how many young people will reach out for help when it's far too late, when it's so much harder for them to get back on their feet? Before we can even think about securing a bed for them, we need to accept that they are carrying the weight of a label and the shame that's associated with being a homeless person. I really believe that by choosing to say someone is experiencing homelessness rather than labeling them a homeless person has the power to make a difference. Because homelessness, that journey may be a chapter in someone's life, but it doesn't have to be the whole story. It's easy to think or easy to put stories like this in the too hard basket and believe that nothing can ever change. But every day around us, we have over 44,000 young people who can be amazing mothers, fathers, leaders, innovators, who are happier, healthier, and connected through the positive contributions they make to our society and the belonging they feel in our community. Mother Teresa once said, "We think sometimes that poverty is to be hungry, naked, and homeless. The poverty of being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for is the greatest poverty." I used to think that the response to homelessness just needed to be food, clothing, and shelter. But I realized that I'm more than the food I eat, the clothing I wear, or the house I live in. A big part of me, and so much of me, is community. The people around me, the purpose in my life, my goals, and my dreams. And so, I want to close by leaving one final message with you. If we can just look at the language, the attitudes, and the judgments we make, it really does have the power to make a difference. The reality is that we may not always be in a position where we can intervene in a circumstance or a situation which can lead to homelessness. But by looking at these things, we have an amazing opportunity, a really amazing one, to improve choice for young people and to ultimately end youth homelessness for the emerging generations. Thank you so much.